Theater works to decolonize Shakespeare. Yes, you heard that right. The people whose job it is to simply put Shakespeare's play on in the heart of London in the most realistic way possible now decided that they have to decolonize Shakespeare, who lived really before England was colonizing anybody. So there you go. So that, and all of this, by the way, so that modern day black people will feel better about an author they never intend to read anyway. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie. This is The Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness of K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today we start with Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London, the reproduced globe, the one that is supposed to look and feel and sound exactly like the 16th century original. It has been there for about, 25 years now. Great play to see a play. To pay what the groundlings played, you can literally stand there on the floor and watch the whole play from your feet. Have you been to the Globe?
Twice.
What plays did you see?
I saw Othello and what was it? It was Romeo and Juliet, I believe.
Romeo and Juliet and Othello. And so now, because everything has to be woke all the time, and no one's allowed not to be woke, and not even in entertainment are we allowed to have one moment's peace from the woke brigade, the Globe Theatre in London has begun to receive backlash. Why? For boasting of its efforts at, quote, decolonizing the plays of Shakespeare, unquote, quote, by a program of, quote, ready for it, anti-racist Shakespeare webinars. And so basically what happens is you've got black academics, at least one, maybe the only black Shakespeare professor in all of Europe and the United States, who's going to tell you why, when you watch Shakespeare, you should be microaggressed. Now, again, Shakespeare lived, there are really no Africans living in England when Shakespeare was writing his plays. As far as we know, there weren't any. And, you know, unless Shakespeare went to Europe, odds are pretty good he went his whole life without seeing an African person, at least a southern African person. And yet, we need these black scholars today to remind us how everything Shakespeare does and says is a microaggression against somebody, primarily black people, who we never met.
Yes, and these webinars, of course, are supported by the Cambridge University Press, and they ask that rhetorical question. You know, what does it mean to read Shakespeare through an anti-racist lens? Oh, what does it mean? It means you are woke. And according to their tweet, as part of our commitment to decolonizing the plays of Shakespeare, we're running free anti-racist Shakespeare webinars alongside our summer plays, thanks to the support of Cambridge University Press. Hashtag Shake Race. See what they did there? Because Shakespeare,
they shake race.
Shake race.
How about this? The theater. It's a theater, right? Come on, guys. Yes. You're a theater. You're basically you're a tourist trap. You're the Noah's Ark display in Tennessee, just in England and just about Shakespeare, right? You're a second-rate amusement park for people who are too nerdy to ride roller coasters. And as a Shakespeare professor, I can say this. But here's what they had to say. The theater, which declared that it is literally publicly had to declare that they are, quote, anti-racist and they believe in Black Lives Matter. Did you know how important that is? When you go to see it, when you fly to London and you go to visit Big Ben and you see all the different palaces and you go to the Globe Theatre, is it really at the top of your agenda to find out that the Globe Theatre believes in Black Lives Matter? Does that have any bearing on your going? How many people are going to go to the Globe because they believe Black Lives Matter? No, none of you? I didn't think so.
Incorrect. That's why I would totally go.
Would you go?
Because remember, that
color usually looks really good on black people. So
are
you already getting yourself ready?
There we be. Yep. This is London, England. And Black Lives Matter is in the U.S.
It's all over, baby.
Oh, it is.
All over the world, Black Lives Matter. Just in case you didn't know, all Black lives matter. Well,
not
minus
unborn.
not the conservative ones.
Yeah,
not the ones that are cops.
Asterisk.
Despite Black Lives Matter, we've discovered something. Help us out. Can we have a webinar? Cambridge University, will you do a webinar and explain to us how they can use a phrase Black Lives Matter when unborn Black lives and conservative Black lives? What's the word? We need a better word than all lives matter. Black lives matter. What can we do that would improve upon this? How would Shakespeare write it?
You would know better than me.
So how do we... We really don't want to piss off our politically correct bosses here. We don't want to make people mad. Black lives matter, but what do we call them, the blacks who don't matter? The conservative ones, the unborn ones.
White supremacists. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
they all get
we
lumped
gotta have a name for them, don't we?
Well, they just get called white supremacists.
Because they don't matter. How dare we lump conservative blacks with woke ones? How dare we question the right of black women to kill babies at a rate higher than any other race in the country? How dare we call that out? We shouldn't call that out.
This is true. Oh, and you can take up your issue here with what to name these Black Lives and Matters with Farah, or is it Farah?
We don't know.
Farah Kareem Cooper, who is the professor of Shakespeare Studies at King's College London, who's the one who curated the Globe's very first Shakespeare and Race Festival back in 2018. Now, this Kareem Cooper has very strong opinions on all sorts of things, but she's super stoked that Sadiq Khan was reelected as mayor of London.
Yes.
And then, of course...
Allahu Akbar, right?
There you go. And she decided to tweet things out, as all professors do. And anyway, she says, she talks about Brexit and that, but the monstrosity of Trump, and she says white privilege and white male mediocrity, and she says the heavy hand of white supremacy. These are all the things that she likes to talk about.
That's what I want to talk about. Here you have clearly a woman of color who is teaching Shakespeare, and one of her big hobby horses is white male mediocrity. Let me just stop this for a second. So to be a white male is to be mediocre. All of our achievements down through the ages have been really not as a big deal as flying to the moon and creating computers and cell phones. All that stuff is overblown. It's mediocrity. That's what white men, and isn't it interesting that she picked the right poet? Of all the poets she chose to base a career on, she chose Shakespeare. And talk about white mediocrity, right? I mean, so you would think that studying Shakespeare for her whole career, she would see at least the possibility of white exceptionalism. But no. So people who go to the theater pay a lot of money to fly to England, or in England, they pay a lot of money in tickets to go see, it's not cheap, baby, to go see the Globe Theater. And when you do, your enjoyment of Shakespeare's work is interrupted by this professor of color who has to keep reminding you in various webinars why you should not just laugh and cry with Shakespeare. You have to realize that as a white man, he's offensive.
So it is very often nothing but our own vanity that deceives us, according to Jane Bennett. Now, Jane Bennett may have said it, but Jane Austen wrote it. And you must know that where there is pride and prejudice, there is Jane Austen being canceled because...
And they're canceling Jane!
They're canceling my Jane Austen. Now, you see, the staff at the Jane Austen Museum, there is one. I've been to... been there anyway.
Is it one big long row and row after row of tea sets?
There were tea sets.
That's it. That's
very
all you need.
There's a photo of me with it was a photo of me next to Jane Austen, and it looks very tea. And we did have a traditional tea.
Of course, yeah. Because
I don't remember if it was before or after it.
Jane, God bless her, Jane Austen, if you like her. But talk about novels in which nothing happens except for hundreds of pages of time it takes boys to realize that they're in love with the girls who love them. That's it. They never leave the tea room and the drawing room. It all takes place. That's to my warped masculine perspective. That's all I see. But that's why we need you here to explain to me why.
Among other things.
Why Jane Austen is A, really, really exciting, and B, why are they canceling the poor girl? What'd she do wrong?
Well, first off, let's get to know a little bit about Jane for you who don't know. Well, her museum, her home is in the Hampshire village of Chawton, where she wrote Emma in Mansfield Park before her death in 1817. They are concerned, the people at her home are concerned that the writer is linked to the exploitation of the British Empire. Because her father was, at one point, the trustee of a sugar plantation in the Caribbean, and because the author, Jane Austen, was known to enjoy a good cup of tea, calling it a refreshing, recuperative beverage.
Wait.
Seriously.
So Jane Austen, like every other English person of the last 10 million years, likes tea. And because her father actually had a stake in a company overseas at one point grew tea.
This is all.
And the fact that Jane so Jane had the date. Talk about a microaggression. Jane actually had the temerity to write that tea is a very refreshing drink. I am outraged. Outraged.
Recuperative. I like to put a little milk in my tea.
Burn the witch at the stake.
Yes. So because of these Black Lives Matters protests, not like it's, again, this is England. Black Lives Matter, all that crazy is in the U.S. here. But anyway.
No. Black Lives Matter is internationally stupid.
This is a good point. Well, the staffers at the Jane Austen Museum were quaking in their wellies. Came up with that one myself.
That means boot, doesn't it?
That means boot their wellies. Anyway, according to the Telegraph, the museum's director has stated that Austen's tea drinking, a key social ceremony in her era and her novels, also links the writer to the exploitation of the British Empire.
There you go.
And they added, as did taking sugar in her tea and wearing cotton.
There you go.
Both of which were produced, the museum says, in questionable surroundings.
So
we can not enjoy
every
anything.
time you eat a candy bar that has sugar in it, and every time you have a glass of iced tea, you are recreating
sweet tea.
Yep, you are recreating the patriarchy, right?
No.
Seriously, it's that stupid. Her dad once was involved with a tea camp plantation overseas, and she once actually said that she finds tea refreshing and recuperative. That's the link, ladies and gentlemen. That's the link.
Oh, I'm not done. I'm not done.
Oh, there's more? Oh, lay it out.
Well, Lizzie Dunford, who's the head of the Jane Austen Museum, said, "This is just the start of a steady and considered process of historical interrogation. The slave trade and the consequences of Regency-era colonialism touched every family of means during the period. Jane Austen's family were no exception. As purchasers of tea, sugar, and cotton, they were consumers of the products of the trade and did also have closer links via family and friends. At Jane Austen's house, we are in the process of reviewing and updating all of our interpretation, including plans to explore the empire in Regency colonial context of both Austen's family and her work."
In other words, we've got to find ways to take her down a peg because she's white.
Yes, here's a little history lesson for y'all folks. Jane Austen's works were written and published after her father had died, and the Reverend George Austen, who was by trade a clergyman, had only a loose connection to the sugar industry, a connection that expired more than 1 decade before Jane was even born. So, poor Jane. Family history, black sheep of the family type things.
I think all that, the tea that she drinks and all that caffeine is mitigated by her novel's ability to put you to sleep. I don't think
It depends on what tea you're drinking.
We should not hold Jane responsible. Let's give her a break for the tea. Tea is one of those stimulants, right? Tea is full of caffeine. On top of all of her other microaggressions, she's participating in the consumption of a beverage that peps you up. But then you can always go and read Jane's novels, and I promise you, the novels will be more soporific than the tea is stimulating.
All I have to say is Mr. Darcy. Ladies. Well, here we go. The Scots have decided they're going to join the insanity that is.
Cancel culture.
If they're doing it, they're down south in England. Might as well get the Scots involved.
Stories, I can't bear stories like this. I can't bear them. I can't bear stories like this. I would so much prefer the Scots to become the premier soccer hooligans of Europe than to watch them compromise their great history with all of this dandified political correctness. I can't bear it.
Well, I hope you put your kilt on, because this one's about our friend Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, because, we just so dumb over here. A Black Lives Matter inspired review of, we could drink, the drinking game to this. Black Lives Matter.
Just drink anything but tea, right?
I got water. We're good. So a Black Lives Matter inspired review of the sites of the Edinburgh Council, which is the local government of Scotland's capital, Edinburgh. Their local government has targeted the grave of poor Adam Smith.
He's not alive, lassie. You can't target him.
Well,
if you can't target him when he's alive, you got to get him dead, lassie. That's why they're targeting the coffin in the grave.
How dare you assume my gender,
lassie?
So,
does the lassie have a wee one in her pants? Is there something we don't know, Lassie?
Knit.
Do you have something knit? Do you have a
knit
penis in your pants, Lassie? No?
Do you have a kilt on your... Anyway. All right, so the Adam Smith, the Scottish Enlightenment philosopher, we've been talking about him all week in Instant Classics. Stay tuned for the next one. They claim he's a racist. Clearly, he's a racist. He's Adam Smith. He's an old white man. Makes him old. Makes him always a racist. But he's on the council's dossier of ludicrously biased.
You know what?
It's included.
You know, Missy, what his problem was, don't you?
What
Capitalism. You go to the Black Lives Matter. Go to Black Lives Matter, Missy, and you'll see. Now I'm talking Irish.
Yeah, you're going a little.
I got all Irish.
Skewed a little.
I skewed. Well,
his hair's gone red.
I'm an Irishman now, critiquing Black Lives Matter, critiquing Adam Smith for this. Faith in Bigora. No, the real problem with Adam Smith is he created capitalism, or he at least theorized it.
Yeah, and that they're tying it to slavery, colonialism.
Right.
It's okay.
And so again, just quickly, you go to the Black Lives Matter own site, and they'll tell you that one of their main purposes is the destruction of capitalism. They want to do away with the nuclear family. Black Lives Matter. They want to decapitalize the world. Black Lives Matter. What the relationship is one word: socialism.
Yeah, and so what they're doing is tying quotes and misconstruing quotes from Adam Smith. Now, here's a little history lesson for y'all. Nearly 50 years before the abolition of slavery, Smith wrote in his 1759 work, The Theory of Moral Sentiments, in regards to the African slave trade, saying, "Fortune never exerted more cruelly her empire over mankind than when she subjected those nations of heroes to the refuse of the jails of Europe." Now, the father of economics also argued that slave owners should be held in moral contempt by their slaves, as well as that economic system of slavery was less efficient than a system of voluntary exchange of capital and labor. And it's that last part where he said it was less efficient than a system of, by him just saying it was less efficient, that makes him racist. That's where they're going with this. Yes. So the city council has now launched a review of historical monuments and places and names and other memorials for the removal or the reinterpretation over these links to racism and oppression. And of course, for Scotland, it all stems from George Floyd here in Minnesota, the US of A. They're tying it all together.
Lassie, I'm confused.
You should be, because
so if I understand, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Lassie.
I will.
Adam Smith.
Yes.
He wrote vigorously against the slave trade, did he not, Lassie?
He did.
Sleeked bastard. Did he also, Adam Smith? He never owned a slave himself, did he, Lassie?
That's correct.
No, he never owned slaves. Did his family ever profit from slavery?
Not that
No, Lassie, it didn't happen. No. So the man condemned it, wrote against it, used the power of economics to try to change the world about it.
Yep.
My Irish keeps creeping
it's going,
back.
It's kind of...
Now I'm just being annoying. But he never did any of those things.
No.
And yet he has to be condemned. Why? Because he wrote about and theorized capitalism.
Yes.
Capitalism, question for you. How did American blacks, the successful ones, how'd they get rich? How'd Oprah get rich?
Well, she gave everyone everything.
Capitalism. How did
she gave everything away.
What model gave Oprah Winfrey her billions? Capitalism. What model made Serena Williams a multiple millionaire? What system enables basketball players like LeBron James to basically have a portfolio worth $1 billion?
Well, in his mind, he would...
Well, my point is,
yes, I know.
It's capitalism. Capitalism did all that for modern American blacks, and Adam Smith now is going to have his coffin, his grave, vandalized because he supported the system that would one day make a lot of black people really, really rich. That last little segment is why we spent the entire week this week using our instant classic time on the wisdom of Adam Smith. There he is. I confess he looks awfully white. There he is. And yet that's the man whose wealth of nations has brought more wealth, more money, more opulence, more opportunity to more people across the world than almost any other treatise. This man is now being condemned because, money. Money's bad when certain people make it, when it's good when certain others do. So all week we've been doing the quotes from Adam Smith and his Wealth of Nations and his other writings. Let's go back to look at some quotes for today. Here's what Adam Smith said, quote, "Never complain of that which it is at all times in your power to rid yourself of. You have no right to complain about that which you in yourself have the power to stop." You ever notice that? Things that are completely within our own ability to fix are the things that we gripe about the most. Pretty wise there. How about this? Individual ambition serves the common good. Love it. Love it. That's why the socialists hate him. That's why the socialists, pretending to be Black Lives Matter, hate him. Because he triumphs the individual, the ability, the right of individuals to get ahead at the expense of collectives. Individual ambition serves the common good. Remember the speech we had from the other day, or the quote in which Adam Smith said something along the lines, the exact opposite of that, right? He said something about how the sad thing about poor people, usually, is how poor their ambitions are. They have the opportunity, certainly in this country, to work hard enough to pull themselves out of poverty, but very often they don't have the ambition. Their ambition is poor. And I'll go back to this quote. Individual ambition, if you have it, serves the common good. It pulls everybody out of poverty. How about this? There is no art which one government sooner learns of another than that of draining money from the pockets of people. The one art that all governments have in common, and yes, socialists, even you, worse in many instances than capitalism, the one thing you know how to do is suck people dry, bleed them dry of their money. And how about this one? Virtue is excellence, something uncommonly great and beautiful, which rises far above what is vulgar and what is ordinary. Virtue, my friends.
All right, those are the stories for the day. And if you have a question for us, please feel free. Send us a little note. Send us an owl if you must. But email us. askduke@fpeusa.org. We will pull that little note right out of the mailbag and read it and answer it. Now, if you enjoy our content, please consider joining our Patriot Club. Your one-time $99 tax-deductible donation allows Duke and myself to keep bringing you all these crazy stories every day. Simply visit patriotclub.us to get signed up. That's patriotclub.us. And of course, as just our little way to say thanks, we are going to send you that signature tumbler to drink that freedom from.
It would be kind of cool to get an owl in the mail, wouldn't it?
That's what I'm saying. It'd be kind of neat.
That would be pretty cool. I could put it on my shoulder during the show. And talk like a pirate.
That would be a parrot, you weirdo.
A pirate or a parrot?
A parrot.
Or how about a parrot?
An owl. How
about a parrot parroting a pirate?
There you go. You could have that work for you.
I think an owl would work.
Sure.
That's what a morning does. That's going to do it for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. No charge for the bird watching. Stay educated, my friends.